In May of 1977, moviegoers were treated to the beginning of one of the largest franchises in the world as they went to watch A New Hope, produced by Lucasfilm. At the time, Lucasfilm was a small film company that had only created film series American Graffiti, but since then, Lucasfilm would lead perhaps one of the greatest galaxy-faring franchises to date, a little-known franchise called Star Wars. As mentioned, Star Wars A New Hope would be the first movie in the Star Wars franchise, following the story of Luke Skywalker, as he discovers the broken galaxy he lives in, devoid of the peacekeepers of the past, the Jedi, that he is so destined to become. Luke traverses the galaxy, rescuing rebellion leader Princess Leia and destroying weapon of destruction, the Death Star, while he is joined by old Jedi mentor Obi-Wan Kenobi and upstart rebel Han Solo and his friend Chewbacca, along with iconic droids R2-D2 and C-3PO. The film would receive immense critical reception and win dozens of accolades from all sorts of film organizations, while maintaining an immense legacy that stands out as one of the most influential and greatest films of all time. It became the first film to gross $500 million worldwide and held the highest grossing film spot for nearly 5 years. Both coinciding and following A New Hope, action figures, books, comics, and more would accompany the famous movie. Kenner Products would get the opportunity to create the first set of Star Wars action figures, which would last them until 1985, before eventually shifting to Hasbro, while Alan Dean Foster would get the opportunity to write the first 2 books, which would quickly build a repertoire of author to support the franchise. Lastly, and perhaps most notably, Marvel would publish Star Wars comics from 1977 all the way to 1987 at first. However, this wouldn't be the only comic publisher that Lucasfilm gave their license to, as Pendulum Press was able to publish educational Star Wars comics in 1978, and Newspaper Strip was able to publish their own shorter film Star Wars comics from 1979 to 1984. In between the first and second Star Wars movie, we would also get a Star Wars holiday special in November of 1978. In May of 1980, the sequel to A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, would be released to movie lovers, eager to continue the galaxy adventure with Luke and friends. The Empire Strikes Back sees the same familiar crew as Luke advances his training with legendary Jedi Master Yoda, while Han and Leia advance the rebel in Jedha before getting caught by Vader himself, forcing Luke to come and confront the Sith Lord, which leads to the legendary reveal that Darth Vader is the Jedi Luke believed his father was. Luke escapes at the cost of his arm and escapes with Leia, although Han is still kept by Jabba the Hutt at the end. At the time, The Empire Strikes Back received mixed reviews from both fans and critics alike, but has since grown into itself as one of the greatest films of both the franchise and of all time. Overall, The Empire Strikes Back would earn over $400 million at the box office, which, along with the weaker reviews at the time, could be attributed to the inconclusive ending. Nevertheless, The Empire Strikes Back was still a commercial success and remains beloved by fans to this day. The final movie of the original trilogy took another 3 years before being released in May of 1983. Return of the Jedi would wrap up the original story of Luke, Leia, and Han, as they start by saving Han from Jabba the Hutt before Luke returns to train with Yoda one last time. Once again, we are confronted with the threat of a new Death Star, leading Luke to confront Vader and his master Palpatine, while Han, Leia, Chewbacca, and the Ewoks destroy shields and generators essential to the Empire's new Death Star. Our heroes succeed in their plans as they destroy the new Death Star's vital components, while Luke is able to convince his father to step away from the dark side of the Force. The Return of the Jedi would complete the series to strong reviews, multiple awards and accolades, and would earn over $480 million at the box office, making it a strong end to one of the most influential movie trilogies of all time. During this time, we would see the first of many Star Wars video games, with an arcade game simply titled Star Wars. We would also get 2 TV series called Droid and Ewoks, following the story of each respective species. Ewoks would get 2 seasons between 1984 and 1985, with The Ewok Adventures and Ewoks, The Battle of Endor as supplemental movies, while Droid would only get 1 season, spanning 1984 and 1985. We would see a shift in the comics, as Blackthorn would replace Marvel as the Star Wars comic publishing company from 1987 to 1988. It would be a short run that would get picked up by Dark Horse Comics from 1997 to 2014. We would also get a multitude of Star Wars video game series after, such as Star Wars X-Wings and Star Wars Rebel Assault, both debuting in 1993, followed by Star Wars Jedi Knights debuting in 1995, Star Wars Rogue Squadron in 1998, and Star Wars Racer in 1999. Lastly, between The Return of the Jedi and the next movie, the Star Wars franchise would partner with Disney to create Star Tours, a Disneyland ride that would be featured in multiple Disney theme parks, first created in 1987, with the last being finished in 1992, before spawning many other Star Wars-themed Disney rides in the future. It would take 16 years before the next Star Wars film would be released, as The Phantom Menace would bring the Star Wars series back to the big screen in May of 1999. Set years before the original trilogy, The Phantom Menace would serve as the start of the prequel trilogy, focusing on the Clone Wars that ultimately brought the ruin of the Jedi and the rise of the Sith. The Phantom Menace focuses on a young Obi-Wan Kenobi and his master Qui-Gon Jinn as they find the Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker, while they face the mysterious appearance of the Sith that has long been thought to be gone. With immense upgrades in technology, like CGI, the Star Wars universe comes into a more realistic light, as we revisit characters like Yoda, Obi-Wan, C-3PO, and R2-D2, while we also get introduced to new characters like Padme and Jar Jar Binks. Speaking of Jar Jar Binks, The Phantom Menace would receive mixed reviews, due in part to the frustrating character, along with the poor pacing of the film, despite being a visual and imaginative treat. Despite mixed reviews, the film would smash the box office, breaking multiple records, such as time to reach 200 and 300 million in box office sales, and would become the third highest grossing movie of the time, adjusted for inflation, only losing to Titanic and older brother A New Hope. Tying in with The Phantom Menace were undoubtedly comics, books, action figures, video games, and more. But for the first time, the Star Wars series would see LEGO sets for their franchise, with iconic sets like X-Wing Starfighter, and more. This would be the beginning of a long-term partnership between Star Wars and LEGO that continues to this day. We would also get 2 new Star Wars game series in 2001 with Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds and Star Wars Starfighter. Following another 3-year schedule, Star Wars Attack of the Clones would be released in May of 2002. We follow the story of Obi-Wan and Anakin several years after The Phantom Menace, as Anakin has grown to be Obi-Wan's fully fledged Padawan. At this point, the Clone Wars has grown in ferocity, as Obi-Wan looks to discover the secrets of both the Clone Army and the Droid Army, coming across his master's master, Count Dooku, who captures him. All the while, Anakin begins to fall in love with Padme, after being tasked to her protection along with Obi-Wan. The two lovers would attempt to rescue Obi-Wan from Dooku before getting captured themselves, culminating in a final battle where Bounty Hunter and the Source of Clones, Jango Fett, is slain by Jedi Master Mace Windu, and Anakin loses his hand to Count Dooku. The movie ends with Anakin and Padme eloping secretly against the Jedi Code. Once again, Attack of the Clones received lukewarm reviews as critics and fans found the acting weak and the climax weaker than the last. That didn't stop Attack of the Clones from being a box office hit, as it nearly broke 650 million worldwide. However, for the standard of the franchise, that was considered a weak showing. Still, the Star Wars franchise showed no signs of slowing down, as we were introduced to one of the most memorable Star Wars game series, with Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, that received a sequel and a notable MMORPG in 2011. We would, however, first get Star Wars Galaxy as the first Star Wars MMORPG in 2003, which would last until 2011. And, in 2004, we would also get the Star Wars Battlefront series, which were well known for their shooter combat. We would also get Star Wars Clone Wars, an animated series focused on the time between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, that lasted 3 seasons between 2003 and 2005. The series would stand out as one of the greatest animated series of all time, with strong storytelling and animation. In May of 2005, we would round out the prequel trilogy with Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith would see the conclusion of the Clone Wars as Anakin gets seduced by the dark side while protecting Palpatine, who has become the Grand Chancellor. It is Anakin's fear of losing Padme through childbirth that causes his downfall. All the while, Obi-Wan takes down Droid General Grievous, after him and Anakin removes Count Dooku earlier in the film. With Anakin fallen to the dark side following a confrontation between Palpatine and Mace Windu, the new Master and Apprentice Sith execute Order 66, a command to the clones to destroy all Jedi. Surviving Jedi Yoda and Obi-Wan confront Darth Sidious and Anakin respectively, climaxing in the duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin that stands as one of the greatest fights in cinematic history, with Obi-Wan winning the duel and injuring Anakin to the point where he is reliant on the armor that makes him the iconic Darth Vader. We end the prequel trilogy with the birth of Luke and Leia as they get taken to their respective homeworlds, with Obi-Wan watching Luke grow before the start of the original trilogy. Like the other prequel films, Revenge of the Sith will get quite mixed reviews, but would stand out as perhaps the strongest film of the trilogy. It would receive many of the same criticisms as its fellow prequel films, but would stand out with a much stronger adventure and a decisive ending. That being said, the prequel films have grown in the hearts of fans, and for Revenge of the Sith, it still nearly reached $850 million in the box office, a truly impressive feat, easily outpacing Attack of the Clones. With the end of the prequel trilogy, we would see the first Star Wars game in that same year, and 3 years later, we would also get Star Wars: The Force Unleashed in 2008. The Force Unleashed would be the first of 2 games that follows the story of Vader's secret apprentice, Starkiller. Following Revenge of the Sith, we wouldn't see another Star Wars movies for many years, but in its place, we would get long-running animated series Star Wars: The Clone Wars, not to be confused with the earlier series Star Wars: Clone Wars, which has become a staple to the Star Wars universe, for massively expanding on the Star Wars lore between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, a focus on, well, the Clone Wars. The series would originally run on Cartoon Network from 2008 to 2013, and on Netflix for 2014, before landing on Disney in 2020. With 7 total seasons, the series massively expanded on the story between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, but also with an expanded focus on Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Anakin's Padawan, Ahsoka. While the Clone Wars would get a shaky start, it would grow to become one of the strongest parts of the Star Wars franchise, both for expanding the lore of the universe, along with its overall animation and storytelling. Additionally, we would also get multiple games to go along with this TV series. In October of 2012, we would see the trajectory of the Star Wars franchise shift dramatically, as Disney would acquire Lucasfilm, resulting in the rights of Star Wars being fully controlled by them moving forward. While Lucasfilm had partnered with Disney on a couple of occasions, such as the theme park rides, the acquisition now meant Disney had full control of the Star Wars license. It wouldn't take long for Disney to make immediate changes to Star Wars, starting with the games, which they were quick to license to EA. Even though the partnership with EA has since fallen through, likely due to EA's aggressively predatory monetization behavior of the series, EA still maintained the Star Wars license up until 2023. In addition to giving EA video game rights to Star Wars, Disney would end the Expanded Universe in 2014. The Star Wars Expanded Universe was a story of Star Wars outside of the original and prequel trilogy that authors, comic book writers, show writers, and more put their part in. Most famously, this meant that comics and books depicting the life of Luke, Han, and Leia after the fall of the Empire were no longer canon in the eyes of Disney, who now owns Star Wars, and many beloved stories and characters would be seen as no different than fan creations in the official universe. The one exception later would be Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which Disney expands on themselves. Disney would also reinstate the Star Wars comics in the hands of Marvel, although we do see IDW Publishing create a couple of comics from 2017 to 2022, and Dark Horse Comics would return from 2022 to create additional comics. The first Disney Star Wars series would be Star Wars Rebels, which focuses on a time between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. The series would receive 4 seasons from 2014 to 2018, and would be quite well received by critics and fans alike. In December of 2015, we would see the first Disney Star Wars film, The Force Awakens. The story establishes the new Star Wars continuity after the original trilogy, with a focus on new character Rey, as we see the return of the Empire after Luke Skywalker failed to build a new Jedi Order, especially after the fall of his apprentice and niece, Ben Solo, to the dark side, who becomes Kylo Ren, primary villain of The Force Awakens. We are joined by new character Finn, a former stormtrooper, and Poe, a rebel pilot, as they destroy a Starkiller base, which is a Death Star-like weapon along with old friends like Han Solo, Chewbacca, and Leia, with their original actors reprising their roles. Overall, the start of the new Star Wars trilogy begins strong, as The Force Awakens surpasses $1 billion in the box office. The film received strong reviews at the time, although many fans and critics did notice its similar plot structure to A New Hope, and George Lucas himself expressed disappointment in that regard as well. Still, the movie was a success and a strong start to the new era of Star Wars. Not long after The Force Awakens, Rogue One was released in December of 2016, not as a sequel, but as a prequel to the original movie, A New Hope. The story follows Jyn Erso as her father is forced to build the Death Star, and she is assisted by friends like Cassian, K2SO, and others in their quest to obtain the plans of the Death Star from her father to allow the Rebel Alliance to find a way to destroy it, as they did in A New Hope. Rogue One would stand as the first official film, not part of any trilogy, and would prove its worth with solid reviews overall, and fan sentiment has only grown. Rogue One will also barely break $1 billion at the box office, which remains an incredible accomplishment. In December of 2017, the next Star Wars mainline movie, The Last Jedi, would be released. We return to Rey's story as the Resistance hopes to reach out to Luke Skywalker, who has gone into hiding after his failure to revive the Jedi. Rey is able to find him and gets him to briefly teach her in the ways of the Force. Meanwhile, the Resistance is being cornered by the First Order, and in desperation, Finn and Mechanic Rose seek to destroy the Empire's ability to track them. While the mission is mostly a sham, Vice Admiral Holdo sacrifices herself as bait for the Empire, allowing the Resistance to escape. While this is happening, Rey attempts to redeem Kylo Ren, but this appears to be a setup by Snoke, Kylo's master. Kylo ultimately tricks Snoke into his death and kills his Praetorian guards with Rey, but fails to be fully redeemed and instead attempts to seduce Rey to the dark side of the Force, before seizing control of the First Order and attempting to kill Luke Skywalker, which he indirectly succeeds in as Luke Skywalker gives himself up to the Force instead. The Last Jedi would do quite well amongst critics and fans, while managing to surpass $1 billion at the box office. However, not all fan reception was positive, as many parts of the movie was heavily criticized, including the cast diversity, the many unanswered or insignificant plotlines, and more. Shortly after The Last Jedi, we would see the first animated series focused on the events before and during the time of the sequel trilogy, Star Wars Resistance, which ran from 2018 to 2020. The show would get good reviews overall, but wasn't necessarily groundbreaking for the series. We would once again get another standalone movie in May of 2018, as Solo would feature the story of a young Han Solo. The movie explores his past as he falls into the world of smuggling, befriends Chewbacca and Lando Calrissian, while he does jobs for Tobias Beckett, and where Han would get his famous Millennium Falcon. The movie would fail to see $400 million in box office sales, while getting rather lukewarm reviews, as it was considered a fast-paced and somewhat enjoyable movie, but lacked complexity that might have given it more life. Considered a failure for the franchise, Disney would seemingly avoid spin-off Star Wars movie for the foreseeable future. Even though Star Wars standalone movies were seemingly off the table, Disney would create a live-action TV series, The Mandalorian, running from 2019 to 2023 with 3 seasons. The show focuses on Mandalorian bounty hunter Din Djarin as he gets his job to retrieve a child of Yoda's species. The show is set 5 years after the Return of the Jedi and will explore a new part of the franchise for the most part, without the major conflicts of the Jedi and the Sith. The show would get strong reviews and would quickly become beloved by fans with strong action, a good story, and endearing characters, especially with the rise of Baby Yoda, who has become an icon of Star Wars. At around the same time, we will receive Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order in 2019 and its sequel Star Wars Jedi Survivor in 2023. The 2 games published by EA would take place 5 years after Revenge of the Sith, following the story of new character Cal Kestis, a survivor of Order 66. The final movie of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, The Rise of Skywalker, would be released in December of 2019. Picking up where The Last Jedi ends, Kylo goes to hidden Sith planet Exegol, where
somehow Palpatine returned.
Or, supposedly, a clone of him did. It is revealed that Palpatine has been orchestrating things behind the scenes, and tasks Kylo to kill Rey. After discovering the secrets of a Sith assassin from the past, Ochi, and confronting Kylo Ren, Rey discovers that she is Palpatine's granddaughter. All the while, Chewbacca, Finn, and Poe gets captured by the First Order before being rescued by Rebellion spy General Hux, who promptly gets executed. Rey once again duels Kylo and manages to stab him after Leia distracts him through the Force as she dies. Rey heals Kylo with the Force, and Kylo retakes his identity as Ben Solo after some reflection with a memory of his father. Rey, Ben, and the Resistance go to confront Palpatine, who they manage to defeat despite being rejuvenated at the cost of Ben's sacrifice. The movie will reach $1 billion at the box office, like the other movies in this trilogy, but reviews were some of the worst the series has seen so far, with many fans expressing their distaste for Palpatine's return, along with much of the plot. As it stands, The Rise of Skywalker is one of the worst reviewed Star Wars films, and continues to receive plenty of negative feedback from the internet. In 2021, animated Star Wars series The Bad Batch would be released, returning back to a time following the Jedi Purge. The Bad Batch features a group of clone troopers who resisted Order 66 and has since gone rogue. The show would get 3 seasons running until 2024 and would receive good reviews for its good animations and voice acting. We would see another Star Wars series with Star Wars Visions beginning in 2021 and still ongoing to this day, as Season 3 is set to premiere this October of 2025. Visions uniquely employs an anime-styled animation, utilizing multiple Japanese animation studios to produce the episodes. Visions serves as a collection of smaller Star Wars stories with no overarching story, as each episode is independent from each other. Rounding out our 2021 TV series is The Book of Boba Fett, which stars famous bounty hunter Boba Fett from the original trilogy, as he appears to have escaped his seemingly apparent demise at the beginning of The Return of the Jedi. The series would get mixed reviews as fans enjoyed Boba Fett but were critical of the storytelling and the visuals. Following The Book of Boba Fett, Disney would continue to treat fans of the franchise with live-action series Kenobi in 2022. A series focused on the story of Obi-Wan Kenobi, bringing back the same actor from the prequel trilogy to reprise their roles as Obi-Wan and Anakin. The story revolves around Obi-Wan's life after Order 66, as he is tasked to protect Leia, all while escaping from Inquisitors hunting him down, before ultimately confronting Vader himself. Kenobi would be a nostalgic series for fans, but was far from without flaws, as the storytelling felt weak at many times. Kenobi would get joined by Andor in 2022, which focuses on the story of the titular character Cassian Andor, a main character in Rogue One. The story is set several years prior to the events of Rogue One, as he starts as a thief before becoming a revolutionary who joins the rebellion. The series would get 2 seasons, with the first running through 2022 and the second in 2025. While Kenobi would get more watched, but with poor reviews, Andor would get stronger traction amongst critics, but fans were more likely to sit out on a new story. We would also get the start of Star Wars Tales, which serves as a collection of independent Star Wars stories, like that of Visions. Star Wars Tales currently has 3 seasons, with more potentially on the way. In 2023, we would get Young Jedi Adventures, the first Star Wars series truly targeted to kids, as it explores the stories of Jedi younglings as they seek the path of the Jedi. We would also get highly anticipated Ahsoka live-action series, which featured the titular character Ahsoka, as she is joined by her fellow cast from Star Wars Rebels, in their attempt to prevent the return of notorious Empire remnant, Admiral Thrawn. Overall, the series would get good reviews, although critics would note weak storytelling and acting at points of the series. We would continue to get unique Star Wars live-action series in 2024 with The Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. The Acolyte would feature stories set far before the beginning of the prequels, as a Jedi investigates a set of crimes that would bring him to the evil from a former Jedi Padawan that has strayed from Jedi ways. Skeleton Crew, on the other hand, would feature a story set a few years after the Return of the Jedi, as a group of teenagers explore the galaxy, encountering a Force-sensitive individual as a coming-of-age story. Both series would receive good reviews, although critics would find flaws with both. And that is the entire Star Wars franchise up until 2025. The Star Wars franchise is a truly unique and amazing franchise that has captivated fans from its inception, and continues to do so to this day. While the franchise has grown to gigantic proportions, with much more to come, like 2 upcoming movies in 2026 and 2027, it is still a delight for fans to visit, and I'm sure we can continue to look forward to unique and engaging content from this franchise that makes it as special as it was when A New Hope first came out.